Hey everyone, Matt from Soundrolling.com, and welcome to the Sound Devices 664 crash course. We are literally going to take you from opening, well, okay, not opening it from the box because they're always so boring, but we've got it out of the box, we've got it in front of us, and now we just need to plug it in, power it on, see it for the first time, kind of know what we're dealing with. So this first video is going to kind of take you through everything from kind of the inputs to the outputs. But instead of just kind of going over it and going over trying to circle in on everything all at the same time, we're going to literally just treat it as we're going for a shoot. Okay, so this scenario is going to be just me. There's going to be a boom mic, which obviously I won't plug into a boom. I'll just plug straight into the mixer. And we'll set up this session and just be able to then talk about outputs at the end. So we're treating this as a shooting scenario, so obviously this video is going to go on a bit longer, but I hope that it will give you better overall context of basically how to use the 664, and kind of then you can build on that and use it for your own kind of shoots and just get used to the kind of the whole workflow in general. So I've been talking a lot, doing lots of other tutorial videos as well, so you'll have to excuse me for coughing and spluttering occasionally. Okay, so we have the mixer in front of us, and we're going to need to power it. Now we have a couple of options for powering. In here, in this spring-loaded death trap that is the battery compartment, we have 5 AA batteries. The positive end goes in first. That will be somewhere in the manual, but you can just take it from me that is how it works. I use 2,900 milliamp hours, because the higher this kind of number is for kind of high usage stuff, the better it lasts, essentially. You're going to get a couple of hours on this. Instead, what I would recommend, once I screw the death trap back on, thankfully it didn't spring out and destroy anything this time, is this. You're going to need a Hawkwood's adapter. You can use that to Google or search. And this is with a SWIT battery. This is an MP1 battery. And you can see here that I'm not doing too badly on the power either, apart from it's scaring my camera. And with these adapters and a 4-pin Hiroshi cable, you might be able to see the 4 pins in there somewhere, we can just plug it in underneath the battery compartment once we get good old death trap out the way. I call it death trap because it really does spring out sometimes and nearly take your face off. So once I, instead of kind of looking, I'm just guessing, click that in, then we are good to go. So of course, what we're going to do first, well, we're going to turn it on. We're going to turn it on here. Now we have the option of going internally to the batteries, the AA's, or over here externally to the SWIT. Let's go for the SWIT. So now we're loading up. We have the latest firmware, and we're presented with this. So what are we going to do first? Well, first let's go through and name what project we're going to do. So menu, and then we go down to number 7, and then we go down to our folder options first, and you'll see we have no folders. And what we're going to do is we're going to add an entry and call this our project name. So for now, I'll just call it film. But you can call it, obviously, whatever project name it is. And what this will do is it will essentially put all your folders firstly into a day, well, it'll put it into film. And then within that, there'll be a day folder. So it will be today's date. And within that will be all the things that you did that day. Very useful to have. You can go lower if you really want to and use things like dailies, or you can use all sorts of stuff basically, but I just use top level and just keep everything together. Otherwise I find that there's so many folders clicking in and out that it gets very annoying for editors and also myself when I'm editing my own work sometimes. Okay, so now we've done that, we want to enter in our sound report info. This is going to be good for generating our reports. So we're going to fill in, obviously, our project, producer. Basically, you can fill in absolutely everything, but the important things are going to be the project, your name, your phone, your email in case people want to reach you, if you had a boom op, because that's always useful to know. Mics are very useful to know, especially if there's ADR or anything else like that. General comments such as no boom op or I don't know, whatever you can think of. And kind of roll number as well, you can add in essentially rolls of sound. So we can say card 1, card 2, card 3, and that can be very useful as well. Anything that says kind of system date or current selection is just going to be automatically generated by the sound devices itself. Very, very useful. We're also going to have max file size over here, and this means that after 4 gig it will actually split the file and then start a new file under the same name. This is useful because, again, transferring sometimes, especially between Windows and PC, you're going to have that 4 gig limit. So if you think you're definitely going to hit that, I mean, maybe turn it down to 2, just so you can definitely be within that limit. But generally, I'm never going over 4, so I have 4, just because it's fine. Otherwise, I'm just sending it online, and yeah, it's fine. But you can take that into consideration. Okay, next is scene increment mode. Now, this means that when I use a shortcut on here to change the slate or change the scene, generally the slate, I can either change it by a letter, so it'll go A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or numeric, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up to a billion. So I generally go with numeric, because I'm kind of doing the American standard, even though I'm in the UK. Dun, dun, dun. See, the police are already after me. Take playback. We take preset mode. We are just going to do either a scene or a daily change, and that means that resets the take number. So every time I go onto a new slate, we will start back at take 0. Well, take 1. Default playback mode, in terms of a file, we can put it on repeat. So when we play a file back, it just keeps going and going and going. And we can also choose our default playback card if we want as well. Okay, so I mean, that's pretty much what everything will kind of look like once we set up for our actual project. We can go into the file list, and this is actually what it's going to look like in your SD card. So you'll see here I did things for Uber, I did things for some Sony things. So in the project, let's say Uber, I have no files because I've taken them off, but then there would be a day folder in here. Maybe there'll be one in the Sony one. No, in the Sony one, there's not even days. There's just all my files. Very useful. Incidentally, we can set that mid-level if you want to do days. So then it splits it up a bit more and makes it a bit easier. But as you wish. So now we've set that up. We're now presented with this menu. And we have time code down here, or time of day. We have what sample rate we're recording at. We have what we're listening to in our headphones. You'll see if we click down, we get to choose what we listen to on our headphones. Otherwise, if we just normally rotate, we actually have the headphone volume. So we're able to kind of listen to an appropriate level. I generally wouldn't have it too high or too low because it will affect how you mix. You generally want to do it so obviously everything's around 0 on here for your dialogue. And 0 being -20 on a full scale. Meaning that, you know, in Pro Tools when they say don't go over 0, -20 of that is 0 on here. Very confusing, I know, but we'll just have to live with it. Up here is our little battery indicator, and we can also see in the main menu the voltage. Generally these go from about 16 down to 13, and these, well, my battery life on the AA's isn't doing well because they've been in for ages, and that goes from generally about 7 if you're lucky, down to about, well, 0 pretty much. Okay, so now let's plug a mic in. So the kind of menus, inputs we have here, are normal XLRs at the top. And we also have direct outputs, which can be turned into inputs as well. But for now, we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to use our little shups here and kind of get it the right way around, just to plug it straight in so we can get some sound through. Okay, so we've plugged it in, and now what we need to do is activate and turn on the channel. So we pop out our gain, click, and we turn it on. And now that we've turned it on, we should generally be getting something through. But we're not, and you know why? Because we need to go to a menu, so flick that to the right, and we need to change this to phantom power. So now you'll see that you can kind of see my voice. So what I just did there is I just pressed the headphone button here, and that gives me all the powering options for the input. And you can see we're on channel 1 here, and it's actually named channel 1 as well, which is very handy. Generally your boom mics are going to be phantom power. Your normal mics, like dynamic microphones that don't need powering, are going to be on mic level. Anything that comes from another mixer is going to be on line level. And anything that needs powering but has already been amplified comes from line level as well. This can also be useful for incredibly noisy recordings as well that are going to just generally overload your mixer. And we also have digital, and these digital inputs are only available on number 6 or number 1. So that's just good to know, because that's generally where you're going to put your boom mic. Notice that I put mine on numero uno, as they say. So now we've got that. What else are we seeing on here? We're seeing generally the level that it's coming in at. We're seeing that obviously the VU, which is the kind of bulk here, is kind of our average loudness, and that's what we can kind of gauge as what we can hear. And then we can see this little dot here at the end is our peak, and that means the loudest wave of the loudest frequency is kind of being represented here. So obviously clipping is when we start going more towards 20. So obviously I'm talking very loud just to activate the limiter there. And so obviously limiting that, it kind of eventually compresses and destroys all the sound. So there we have it. And we also have a little gauge here of when we're going over into activating the limiter, because then it goes orange as opposed to green. Now what else we have here is our fader, and our fader means that if we just click off the menu, our fader means that if I turn it up, the fader is obviously going to be louder on the mix track, or I can turn it all the way down and it'll be on absolutely nothing. Now you'll notice here that we have obviously 1, and then we have L and R. So if I go back to the menu, we can choose to have ISOs as also post-fade. So right now, they're on pre-fade. So if I change them to post-fade, it means that the ISOs follow the fader. So if I turn the fader off, then it won't record anything on the ISO track either. Now, I personally don't find that very useful, because I like to record everything at once just for the guys in post, because I do a lot of films, and they like to be able to hear everything all the time, basically. And then I'll do my mix track just to tell them roughly what to listen to. So we set our gain kind of appropriately, just to get a better signal. Okay, now down here we have our high pass filter, and you can see the start of it is 80. So once I click it, now this means that everything above 80 Hertz will be let through, and anything below will be killed on sight. So that is kind of good for just helping with excessive wind noise, kind of handling noise. It's definitely not going to completely save you, because they can do this in post-production as well. But if you find that you know or are in a situation where you're going to know that they're just going to shelf it at 80, meaning they're just going to completely cut out everything below that, then you may as well do it for them, I guess, is one argument. It kind of depends what kind of camp you're from. So you'll notice that there's also flashing on here, and this is because I've actually activated PFL, pre-fade listen. And this is for if I have all of these inputs on. For instance, let's imagine that they're all up and I suddenly hear a rustle, but I know that this person is talking. I can quickly just listen to this input, and even though all of these are going to the mix track, I only hear this one, and I only hear it before the fader. So it doesn't matter where this fader is, even if it's off, I can still then listen to the ISO if I'm listening in pre-fade. Okay, so let's just put that to the right. We go back to the main menu here. Let's turn down the gain a little bit, because even though the microphone's pointing away from me, obviously it's being incredibly loud to get up to a normal level. Okay, so we have our signal and it's going in. What else do we need to do? Well, we need to record to something. Now, we do this through here. If it'll just zoom in. I've put in an SD card, which will clip in. 64 gig lasts a long time in video. In sound even, I should say. And I have a CF card as well. Soundrolling.com on there. Lovely little bit of in-branding in case anyone steals my rushes. So once they're in there, we are then able to see up here that on the 64 gig card, what I have left, I can still record 30 hours at the moment, over, of 3 channels. And on the CF card, 2.5, because that's only 16 gig. If I go into the menu, and then I go into recorder, I can obviously select the kind of quality that I want to record at. On here, generally, you're just going to be going for 48, unless you're going for some funky frame rates, or slowing down, or something crazy. Bit depth, you always want to be 24, and pre-roll time I always have as the maximum, which is 6 seconds, meaning that if someone claps the slate and I go up and press record, I've already got it because it's recording continuously the past 6 seconds and then deleting everything of the 7th and beyond second. Now, polywire files are very useful because it means that everything goes into one file. So all your separate tracks go in order and they're all then condensed into only one file. You can then choose to just do the ISOs only. So that's the inputs 1 to 6 or 1 to 12 if you're going all the way. The L and the R, which is just the mix track or just the auxiliary track. Or we can do the MP3 version of just the mix track or just the auxiliary tracks. Excuse me, so much talking. Or we can do WAV monos, and this means that it makes lots of mono files, which is going to be just terrible to work with, really, unless you specifically want to record a lot of people and then just automatically have them separately so you can separate them out, or you don't want to have to split poly files. It really depends on your workflow, but as you can see, I am not a fan. So generally I'm a WAV poly, and same for CF as SD. You can have backups that are just ISOs if you want. It will save you a bit of space. But if they do want your mix track on both, then you may as well have your mix track on both. So now we've got something in, we've got something there. We need to know how to record. So this is using this toggle button around here. So we have down for play. We have press it for stop, or pause and then stop. We have rewind. We have fast forward. And we have up, which is record. And we have, again, pressing, which is stop. Now, you'll notice there that the file was TO1. This is because we haven't actually named any scenes. So this is just calling it generically take 1. So, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to press, you see where it says file, and it links this button with this button? Well, we're going to do just what that says. We're going to press the headphone button, and then we're going to press the menu button. And then we get into this take list menu. And what we can do in the take list is we're able to then select either a previous file or the next file. and we're able to give it things like a scene name. So I can call this 1-1 for instance, scene 1, slate 1, and then it'll automatically call it take 1. I can also then go through and name all the tracks that I want. So if I know a certain character or a certain input is on channel 1, such as boom, then I can just label that there. What I did for OK there was I used these little toggle buttons at the bottom here. So if I move this to the right, it presses OK. And I can name everything else if I want as well. So then we see that the next one is 1-1 take 1. And if we're on the main menu, we can just hold the stop button and we can see the next slate anyway. Now, if I record a few more times, you can see I can just continuously record another one by just tapping straight up. Let's say stop there. Now let's say we want to move on to slate 2, but it's still scene 1, but we want it to be slate 2. We press the headphone button and then we press fast forward. And so when we press fast forward, it says, do you want to increment it? i.e., do you want to add another number on top? Because earlier we changed it to numeric. And the answer is we do. So we press OK. And now when we hold stop, it's now 1-2. Very useful. And at any time we can go back and we can make notes on any of these as well. So this is 4334, which is binary for very good, probably. Okay, so that is pretty much your complete basic setup. So we've got a microphone in, we know that we're mixing it up and down, trying to get dialogue at 0, and now we can look at sending it to outputs such as the SD card and CF card, but we're also able to send it out of any of these to another device. So we can send it out of the XLRs, which is a copy of obviously the mix track, which is L and R. We can send it out of these 10-pin Hiroshi cables, which are L and R, as well as, well, if you use digital, they're even more. They're up to 8 outputs, which is crazy. We can send it via these TA3 outputs, again for the L and the R balanced, or for the X1 or X2. And we have tape out as well, which can be various sources of cameras, or it can be, just our normal mix track again. We also have timecode on here, and we'll go through timecode on a different video. But thank you very much for sticking with me for now. I'm glad that we've managed to set up to basically be able to record. So if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like it, feel free to subscribe, feel free to comment, telling me to explain anything else, and I'll get that uploaded ASAP. So, I've been Matt Price. Thank you very much.